Well done to you if you've covered part 1 and 2 of this 3-part video this week. We've covered some of the mistakes you must avoid in terms of how you set up your imaginal scene. And then in part 2, I talked about how you can actually creatively imagine those scenes, 4 stories that actually go step by step in terms of giving you some ideas as to how you can set up these scenes. In this video, I'm going to be talking about more than just setting up your scenes. This ultimately is about becoming that new version of you. I'm going to talk about what it exactly means in terms of the new version. First, I want to bring in the highlights from part 1 and 2 so that you can see how it all fits together. If you're new to my channel or you don't know about the work that I do, my name is Fazila Bijo and I live in Cape Town, South Africa, and I love being able to bring to you teachings from great mystics like Neville, Joseph Murphy, Florence Scovel Shinn, and many more, so that you can understand, explore, and put into practice the teachings of reality creation and manifestation. But ultimately, this is about us awakening to our innate power of I am. And a quick recap, if you have not watched part 1 or 2, but if you have watched part 1 and 2, this is so that you can actually remind yourself about what we've covered. We are reminded throughout all of Neville Goddard's teachings that man creates his experience. The cause of his reality is his consciousness, his imagination, the God presence within, I am, source, creator, whatever you most align to. Look at it from that perspective. Your imagination is the cause of your reality. Desire, assumption, and how you enter into the image. When we look at entering into the image, it is about entering into the state and where the feeling and the state combined together create what it is that you most desire for yourself. This is where we plant the seed of desire into our subconscious mind through the practice of the state akin to sleep, which is very important. If this is the first time you're hearing about the state akin to sleep, please watch my previous video from this series, Feeling is the Secret, so that you can understand why sleep is the gateway to the subconscious. What the world looks like depends entirely on your mental and emotional state, because you are constantly creating your reality based on what you believe, how you think, how you feel. When that fuses into the state of consciousness of your desired outcome, this is what you create in your life. And very importantly, in this chapter, I've spoken extensively about thinking of versus thinking from, and what the wide difference is in terms of thinking of versus thinking from. In part 2, which has the stories of manifestation, we see that each one is able to enter into the scene in the image and make it real. They are already living from that scene. They are already living as though that is the version that is most applicable, most real for them. The union of your imagination with that strong feeling state that your desire is accomplished is how you enter into the image. When I speak of entering into the image, it is entering into your imaginal scene. It is entering into that desire which you may have only been thinking of, and now to think from, you become the participant in your imagination. This is a question I've asked in the previous video. What is the feeling you would achieve when you have the thing you desired? That's thinking from. I encourage you to look at what is the feeling that you will experience when you've accomplished whatever desired outcome you would love to have in your life. Now we get into how you apply what we've covered in the past 3 videos. So let's meet Jake. Jake 1.0 right now has a couple of challenges in his life. He wants to be successful. He would love to have his business idea take off and create the lifestyle, for him to have the money and the success that he's always been dreaming of. In his current state, Jake 1.0 has to become a new version of Jake 2.0. To become 2.0, he doesn't have to, in the personal sense, give up everything that he is right now. He does have to step into this new version of himself who already has the success. Jake would love to achieve success for his business, to have all of the things that he's been dreaming about in his life. And so he says to himself, I want to make a change. What is the change that I would love to have? So now he starts to explore New version, this version that Jake dreams of becoming, has to start out with his desire, and it starts with an assumption. He starts to assume, and he defines his desire. He defines what his outcome would be, and that is having a successful, thriving business. He starts to see, and he starts to realize that he has to be the one that believes that he is this person already. And that version of himself is the one who already has this experience. That version of himself is living from making the decisions that a successful business owner would make. As Jake starts to believe that he is this person, he aligns his desire and his assumption, and the implication of his desire is his business idea took off. He has this feeling of success. He lives from this feeling of accomplishment. Day by day, as Jake 1.0 loses the state of lack, he no longer remembers what the state of lack was. He no longer focuses on the problem. He starts to see he is achieving growth. He's achieving success. He's meeting new people. Why? Because he changed who he believed himself to be. He believed, he already saw himself and accepted the belief that he is a successful business owner. His change in attitude, how he thinks and how he feels about himself, how he aligned from the perspective of a business owner who is successful. And the more he believes himself to be this person, the more he starts to see that his choices and experiences are bringing him more and more expansion. His choices are leading to more expansion. His business starts to thrive. Jake 1.0 rewrites his story in his mind. No longer does he see himself as the person who lacks. He already has the desired outcome, which is the feeling of success and accomplishment. And what he previously thought as lack and limitation, he now sees as opportunity and creation in his life. When we are going through this change of becoming the new version, we must remember that all our events, all our current events in our life stem from us creating the past continuously. When we focus on problem, it is only going to be that our problems are recreated in our life. We cannot serve two masters, which means that you cannot be the person who believes in lack and the person who believes in success. These are conflicts. You have the state of consciousness, which is lack, and you have a state of consciousness, which is success. At each point, as you're making this change, as you're making this transformation, you've got to move away from lack. You've got to drop that old state of lack. When thoughts of lack come up, you must ask yourself, who am I? Am I the person who believes in lack? Or are you going to be the person who has the partner, who has the business, who has the success? It's always up to you. In that time of changing over from the old version to the new version, you may constantly find yourself going back into the old habits. You're the one that has to be vigilant and keep moving your state of consciousness, keep moving your thoughts, moving your feelings into and reminding yourself who you are desiring to be. Because when you have achieved something, you are changed. So think of a goal that you've achieved in the past. You went from the person who didn't have it, and you changed in terms of your feeling and your consciousness, because when we've achieved something, we are changed because we now have that achievement in our reality. So we no longer lack that which we desired. Why? It is in our experience. We have given birth to that experience. When we achieve that new level of expansion, unless we deliberately are taking ourselves back to thoughts of lack, we are the one that has achieved that. Now, if you've been watching the Olympics, when an athlete completes a race and they're announced a winner, they don't go back to having thoughts of lack. They become the changed person into being the Olympic winner. Watch their body language, watch how they are changed, watch how they walk, watch how they speak. There are no thoughts of lack. There is no consideration for failure. That is how you are to see your future desires. This is what it means to think from. When you achieve your goals, you are a changed person. You will no longer identify as the person who is in lack. And this is because you have that achievement in your experience, and that is what it means to be embodied. You feel that experience in your body. You feel it down to a cellular level. Your neural networks rewire to identify as the person who has that accomplishment. If you don't see yourself as a person who's experiencing, seeing, and feeling it within yourself, you will not change the circumstances and conditions that you have been seeing in your external reality. Life will continue, and so will your current conditions of lack. And this is what Neville talks about in terms of manifestation. This is what thinking from does. It makes that future physical state here in the present. When you see those athletes who are about to start their race, they're focused and they are already in the zone. So you've got to put yourself into the zone and see the outcome even before you've begun the race. You've got to make what you know is the outcome of that race, that physical state of the winner, already in your present current version. Jake 1.0 becomes Jake 2.0. He goes into the mindset, into the physical state of how he would feel, how his body would feel, how he would walk, how he would talk, what are the circumstances that would be going on around him. And he brings all of that feeling state into his current state. He now pushes the state of lack, of not having, and he brings that future state into here. He also makes then the future time now. You run the race because you know that showing up means that your medal is already yours. Right? You must already know it is guaranteed because you are that version already. Here's something that I want to bring into your awareness, and it's about the successful realization of the thing that is desired. As Neville speaks about it in At Your Command, as Neville speaks about this in At Your Command in chapter 6. Here he says, successful realization of the thing desired is also told to us in the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Here it is recorded that Daniel, while in the lion's den, turned his back upon the lions and looked towards the light coming from above, and the lions remained powerless. And Daniel's faith in his God saved him. This is a psychological drama of man. So this is what the story means. This is also your story. And you too must do as Daniel did. If you found yourself in a lion's den, you would have no other concern but lions. You would not be thinking of one thing in the world but your problem. And that problem would be the lions. If we would follow the example of Daniel, we would, while imprisoned within the den of poverty, of sickness, take our attention away from our problems of debt or sickness and dwell upon the thing we seek. And this is the lesson here. If we do not look back in consciousness to our problems, but continue in faith, believing ourselves to be that which we seek, we too will find our prison walls open and the thing sought, yes, whatsoever things realized. So this is what Neville is saying, that in your den, when you think that your problems are like being surrounded by lions, to expand on what Neville's talking about here, you as Daniel are caught up in the den of your problems. Your problems are the lions that are around you. So you are to turn away from your problems. Turn your back on your problems. You deny what it is that you are seeing in terms of your problems. And this is not a make-believe thing, but what you will do is when you see problems in your external reality, you will go back, you will keep stepping into the faith of your desired outcome being real to you. If you think problem, you will attract more problems. When you think from your desired outcome and you do not feed your problems with any of your attention and any thoughts and feelings, you keep reprogramming your state of consciousness. You keep choosing to move into the state of consciousness that your belief and your faith is so strong that you have your desired outcome. You become that version of the person who has their outcome because you drop the old version and you become the person who has accomplished their desire. You become the person who has experienced their desired outcome. So act and be the changed person. Neville says, by him they were made. By him is saying, by your imagination, those circumstances, those conditions, those things in your life were made. By him they will continue. If you are to continue thinking and feeling and imagining the way you have been, you will continue with your problems. And by him they will continue in being. By your imagination, it will continue because you are being that person. And by him, they can cease to be. And in your imagination, you can choose to let the old version die. And by him, they can cease to be. When you revise and you change and you rewrite the old version as your new version now. When you choose to only be and embody the new version, yes, for a while things may not appear as you would love them to be, but as you rewrite the past, because you are choosing a different future, you choose to drop the old state of consciousness and you choose to drop the old circumstances. And you can become the new person and you become the new version. But there is a warning. And the warning is, what is your assumption? An assumption means the thing that is accepted as true or certain to happen without you seeing proof or evidence of it right now. That is what it means to step into the new version. And your implication, and it is entering into that imaginal scene, entering into the image of your desire. By implication, it must be something that already suggests it has happened. Whether it is indirectly or not, it doesn't matter. Watch the stories that I spoke about in part 2, about the implication that each of those people actually lived from. They lived from the implication that their imaginal state, their desired wish had already been delivered to them. Because this is the warning. If you don't do that by your assumption and implication, you will not be able to give creative expression through your imagination. You may visualize, and this is where many people fall short, is they may visualize, they may have their imaginal scene, but the feeling state does not imply that they've already achieved that desire. So Neville says, if you don't do this, you will not give form, which is physical reality, not give expression of what you have been feeling and seeing in your imaginal activity. What you must be aware of is your desire, your assumption, the implication of your assumption, the identification you have as the new person, as the new version. For a while, you must detach and not react to what may be showing up in your physical reality, and ensure that your inner conversation is in alignment with your desire. As we've seen in part 2, we've seen the New York rental, or how she sees herself already by virtue of being in her country home, that her New York apartment was already rented out. That by sleeping in their one-story house, their three-story house is sold. And by feeling her presence as real at the gates of Buckingham Palace, she goes on to have the year in Europe. And by living from the state of the person whose home is already decorated, manifests the funds that make it possible for him not to just redecorate his home, but for other things in his life as well. Watch part 2 and see how these people had all manifested their desires in a very short space of time for themselves as well. How was part 3 for you? I loved that I was inspired to go and look at the story about Daniel in the lion's den. All of Neville's stories talk about the psychological drama of man and our consciousness. If you've been following my channel and you go back to any of my previous videos, start to look at it from that perspective. You're going to open up to another level of consciousness and expansion. I'll share with you that this is the Neville Goddard collection. And with me reading this book continuously, this is what's happening. I will continually go through this book. I highlight and I make notes. And I find that whenever I revisit a passage, I may have read a book or a lecture previously, I get to have new understandings. And it's because my state of consciousness opens up to more that I can actually understand and the deeper meanings. So I suggest, if you can get a physical copy of one of the collections. This has 10 of his books and a lot of the lectures. Continue to read, to study, listen to the videos. You know, there are lots of channels out there that also talk about Neville's work. The more you listen to even someone just reading out a passage, there's something that happens in that your consciousness is awakened. So you don't have to put effort into it. You could even have these audios in the background while you are doing housework or while you're driving. That is what I do when I'm driving. Just from doing that, I often will have a sense of my state of consciousness changing. So I wish that for you as well, because we are forever expanding. Life is always teaching us and helping us to expand. And if you choose to be the person who desires that, you will receive information, you will receive the books, you will receive, and you will be guided to different authors, people, lectures, channels, whatever that might be. I'm going to be linking the revision playlist up here so that you can understand a lot more about how you can revise your day, how you can revise past experiences, but also how you can revise undesirable experiences into desirable ones, and how you can also expand desirable experiences into even greater. So if you have questions, comments, thoughts, please leave them for me in this week's video. I would love to hear from you. Thank you for making this channel great and being part of the growth. I will catch you in the next video. Bye for now.